Tonight, as thousands of Central American migrants are stalled at the Tijuana border, another possible roadblock. A potential new deal between Mexico and the U.S. that would keep these migrants in Mexico while their asylum claims are considered in America. A process that could take months, even years. Mexico's government denies any such agreement. Meanwhile, the Trump administration is not confirming it either, but a spokesperson today said they are looking forward to working with the incoming Mexican president on a wide range of issues. Meanwhile, conditions in Tijuana are getting worse. The city's mayor saying his city is facing a humanitarian crisis and is appealing to the United Nations for help. Sanitation conditions dire. Children sleeping on the ground. Families in crowded tents made of tarp and twigs. Showering outdoors. Daily life here dense and difficult. Inside this sports stadium, which was always meant to be a temporary makeshift shelter, these people may have to stay here indefinitely, just within eyeshot of the U.S. border. But Evelyn Martinez, 8 months pregnant and traveling with her 7-year-old son, said she would wait as long as it takes. But not all migrants may be so patient, with reports that some may try and storm the border. These men rallying a group for an attempted crossing tomorrow at 5 a.m. Across the Southwest, the border is now fortified with barbed wire, backed up by some 6,000 U.S. troops who have authorization to use lethal force. And Trump earlier this week threatening to shut down the border altogether.
We're going to either have a border or we're not. And when they lose control of the border on the Mexico side, we just close the border.
That proposed asylum deal we told you about wouldn't take effect until December 1st, giving the people in this overflowing camp just 6 days to cross the border and file an asylum claim in person on U.S. soil.
Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.